So, if you're a longtime viewer of this channel, you might recognize this music. I put it in the background of plenty of my videos. I also wear this shirt quite often in videos and on live streams. Well, I have a special connection with this music and this artwork. They both belong to a Nintendo game called Wizardry. I first saw the artwork when my dad brought home the game cartridge and Nintendo system in the early 90s. I was very young at the time, so these are some of my oldest memories. The setup of my childhood home was fairly standard. We had 3 bedrooms upstairs, a den, a living room, an additional bedroom downstairs, which I was absolutely terrified of for some reason, and a basement living area. This was our rec room. My dad would often spend his nights here, sitting on the couch watching TV. For my younger viewers, the Nintendo Entertainment System, or the NES, was like this thick gray box with sharp corners and black trim. It was the first video game system brought into my house. The rec room would be the new home of this gray box. It sat on the floor in front of our entertainment unit. I would often beg my mom to let me go downstairs late at night to sit with my dad while he watched hockey or Star Trek: The Next Generation. Sometimes she would say okay, and I'd sneak down and cuddle next to my dad, running past the terrifying bedroom downstairs. He was a fairly tall man with a big dark beard and full head of hair. I guess I didn't inherit all of his genes. I got the beard anyway. One night, after pleading with my mom to stay up for just a bit longer, I crept down the stairs to find my father, face lit by the glow of our TV, black and gray controller in hand. As I climbed up onto the couch and I sat next to him, this music played. Wizardry, the proving grounds of the Mad Overlord. In this game, you take control of a party in a high fantasy setting, Dungeons & Dragons style. The party is tasked with entering a dungeon of brick and stone, descending ever deeper into the winding, twisting labyrinth. Monsters, ghouls, imps, and kobolds from Dungeons & Dragons aren't your only enemy, however. Once you go in, you'll need to find your way back out. My father would play this game surrounded by sheets of graph paper. The paper, covered with scribbled lines and arrows drawn in pencil, then scratched out by blue pen and drawn again, slightly different. This game was released before the concept of a mini-map system we see in games today. You had to do it all by hand. This game had a haunting vibe. The graphics were primitive and sparse, the music was memorable yet complex, and the gameplay was difficult. I remember nights of sitting entranced while my father desperately tried to keep his party alive while passing through thick oak doors, down ladders into the next levels, uncertainty around every corner, inching ever closer to confronting the Mad Overlord himself. Years passed and I discovered video games with better graphics, more enjoyable gameplay, bigger productions, and in-depth storytelling. But no game ever affected me like this one. My father had his second heart attack when I was in grade 9, right before my 13th birthday. I remember seeing him in the hospital, hooked up to tubes and machines. He reached out to me in that noisy emergency room, his family surrounding him. My older sister cried at the sight, something I tried desperately not to do. I feel that was a turning point in his life. Once he recovered, he started getting more agitated at things, more confused. He always had a temper, but this was different. He was slipping away from himself. He would eventually be diagnosed with early Alzheimer's, sometime in his 40s. Members of my family decided it would be best if he went to live in a care home where he could be more closely watched. He had a history of depression, so once his condition became very apparent, it seemed no longer safe for him to live by himself. I saw him many times over those years, but each time it was more and more painful. I would often lock myself away to avoid thinking about it, and instead practice guitar. I would spend full summer days in my room learning some riff or developing a technique that I thought was interesting or difficult. This was my escape from reality. I said goodbye to my father in 2012 at the care home in which he resided. He no longer had a spark of life behind his eyes, and he didn't seem to recognize me or my sister. It was like someone turned out the lights and left his body alive to stand memorial to his character. But inside, none of his character remained. I had always remembered my dad as a large-framed man, physically imposing, yet always laughing, smiling, face wrinkled by crow's feet. However, the person sitting in front of me that day looked small and fragile. My sister and I sat there joking to each other while avoiding the painful thoughts that our father was gone. We both said goodbye and got up to leave. As we were walking away, one of the aides in the home did her best to get him standing, and we turned around to Dad, standing in the large room. I find it difficult to describe the sight of him in that moment. The image, however, is burnt into my brain as the last time I saw my father. He passed away in 2014 due to complications during surgery. His vitals dropped and they tried to bring him back, but he quietly slipped away. My relationship with my father wasn't perfect. I was a teenager, what do you expect? I was interested in girls, music, video games, and hanging out with my friends. I wasn't always there when he needed me, but he knew I loved him. He bought me my first guitar. He drove in his work van to pick me up from a school dance the first night I kissed a girl. I was excited to tell him. There isn't much I wouldn't give to spend another day with my dad. To tell him how I made a career out of music. To tell him I married a woman who shares his love of Lord of the Rings. To show him a few chords on the guitar and maybe even how to play the beginning of Stairway to Heaven, one of his favorite songs. But all I have are these memories, some happy and some sad. Memories of those late nights when I would excitedly creep down the stairs and see his face lit by the brightness of our TV. My father going further into that dark dungeon, the pathways winding deeper and deeper. All I have are the memories like this, cuddled up next to my dad on the couch, with that haunting music, that title screen daring you to press start, as if to proclaim, you aren't ready for what adventure lies ahead.